How do you get visibility, authority, and credibility? The guest of the show today helps people do just that. He is serial entrepreneur, brand consultant, and content creator, specializing in personal brand positioning, branding, and marketing. Today, we're speaking to Tiyon Simpson. I am Vardan, and you're watching the Vardan Ter-Antonyan Show. Let's go.
Welcome to the Vardan Ter-Antonyan Show. We're sitting down with authors, speakers, entrepreneurs, executives, and industry leaders to talk about business, leadership, and strategy. In a world where competition is ruthless, information is power, and decisions move markets, this is where leaders learn how to win. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the show, Tiyon.
Vardan, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the invitation and being the guest today. So your philosophy is that there's a gap between who you are and who you're capable of becoming. And you help clients close that gap. So talk a bit about what you could do for someone specifically and your methods of closing this gap. Maybe some success stories, and does this work for anyone?
That is an excellent question. So how do I help people close that gap? Well, more specifically, I would say my brand mantra in terms of the philosophy of how I help clients is I help ambitious people become excellent, which is essentially a more fancy way of saying there's a noticeable gap in where you are currently, either in your career or in your business, or at least in terms of some kind of personal or professional development, and where you want to be in the future. Where I help people specifically, and I have several target audiences or several target clientele, so to speak, I mainly help people in terms of increasing their level of visibility in order to attract opportunities, promotions, more revenue, more income for themselves, or simply just to become more of a trusted voice or trusted face in their particular field if they're a professional, for example. So to kind of break that down just a little bit, Vardan, three main areas, and there's lots of subsections, but I'll just break down the three main categories of people that I work with. So the first main category, my biggest category, is entrepreneurs. And with that, wide range of people, from the people that are starting out, just starting the entrepreneurship journey for the first time, those that are a little bit more longer in the tooth, but are maybe a little bit unsure in terms of why maybe their business isn't growing. And with that, as coupled with my other business, which is called Zatira Media, where myself and my wife, we help small businesses and individual entrepreneurs primarily with branding services. Whereas for me, myself personally, with the consultancy service I offer, I will kind of work on a more of a psychological, more of a one-to-one basis to kind of help people to navigate that gap. So entrepreneurs is the main one. Professional people, especially professional people that are looking to increase their visibility. So if they're looking for more speaking opportunities, promotions, and like I mentioned, if they want to be more of a trusted name or face in their field. And finally, content creators and creative people. These may be people that are excellent, or maybe they have an excellent talent, or they have a gift, or something that they're just not being able to either monetize or make a living out of, which was something I personally struggled with, being a musician of 30 years. And my family in particular was very discouraging of me wanting to take that path. You know, that the phrase starving artist or starving musician comes to mind here. So I wanted to create an ecosystem of sorts to help these kinds of people specifically. Now, Vardan, you asked a very, very important question before I let you carry on. Does this work for everybody? A short answer is no. And the reason why is I think most people think that they want to be ambitious, or that they think that they want to close the gap, but they haven't got an idea as to how to do it. And also they haven't got the conviction to do it, which is more what I'm seeing rather than the know-how, because thankfully now we're in a place, especially with the age of social media and things like this, podcasting, and so many ways that people can become visible these days, where we can educate those that are not maybe familiar with the process of how to become more visible, or how to, essentially build up your reputation and visibility in order to close that gap you're wanting to close. The education part is fine, but the problem that I'm finding more often is the willingness, the lack of
Hmm.
almost like the lack of capability in order to do it. Because I've identified three particular gaps, and this is a framework that I use with my consultancy service and something that I talk with clients. The first one is identity, where a lot of it is problems in your head, in your mind, that's kind of stopping you from bridging that gap. The second one is execution, where there is just what we would call a simple lack of get up and go. Or maybe your get up has gone, or who knows? It's just something that's kind of stopping you from moving from that place of, yes, you do know that you're working towards closing that gap, but there's something ultimately that's kind of getting you in the way from actually executing. And then finally, there's perception, where you're okay with the identity and the execution part, but perception is where there's maybe an insecurity or a surrounding of, well, how is what I'm doing being perceived?
Hmm.
What is the reception going to be like? Or am I really building something that really is going to be trusted in my field or expertise or whatever it is? So that was a kind of a long way of me basically saying, Vardan, that yes, there's a very broad range of people that I work with, but I think ultimately you cannot enter into a service that I offer or that I can basically help people with if you're basically not even willing to take the first step. Because
Hmm.
as the education part is easy, helping someone to, actually get up and do it is harder. So those are challenges that I face, but that's well, I say a small nutshell. I've spoken for a little bit, but that's kind of a short section of what I do and how I do it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I've actually looked into a lot of that
Mm,
myself, and I've worked with a PR firm
mm,
before that did increase my visibility, authority,
mm.
and so on. So it's like and so, but a lot of people, like you said, become addicted to the idea of becoming, exceptional more than the actual work that
Yeah.
requires,
Mm,
to become exceptional.
yeah.
So you definitely need to work for all of that, so
Mhm.
to achieve the desired result, so to speak. So, you know, by your nature, I know that you're a very authentic person.
Thank you.
I've followed, a lot of the messages and things that you do on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
and it's extremely authentic. You talk about, well, everybody says, oh, this person is successful, this person is a millionaire, this person is this, but like um, entrepreneur and whatever, but nobody talks about like what's that work that this person had to put in order to achieve that,
Yeah.
success and stuff like that. So in the world of like this fake and manufactured alternative truths,
Mm.
you're a breath of fresh air because you
Thank you.
operate within the frame of authenticity. Have
Mm.
you ever felt pressure to become the character your audience expects
Oh,
instead of yourself?
oh, excellent. Another excellent question. Brilliant question. Do you know something? I have been a kind of a studier of social media for, I'd probably say quite some time. And maybe, I was fortunate in a sense where I was a teenager, sort of in my early 20s when social media became a thing. So I was able to kind of see the transition of people embracing social media, and then I'm seeing from other people how they have developed either a certain characteristic or they will be known for certain phrasings or they'll post about certain things. And maybe I didn't really notice it at the time because, why would you? Because you're not focused on that. But as time has gone on, yeah, let's just say I fell into that trap as well. There were periods where, let's just say before I was building my business, where I thought in order to either gain some kind of, I don't know, maybe peer acceptance or, just to
Mm,
kind of seem credible, that there needed to be some kind of either persona or stereotype that needed to be played up to.
yes.
Um, whilst I don't particularly want to derail the conversation into talking about that in particular, but let's focus on kind of the here and now where in terms of being more conscious of building a personal brand, the idea was that I always wanted to be genuine and honest, not just with how I carry myself on a day-to-day basis. But whilst I was working in the corporate world, I worked in corporate financial services for almost 10 years in the City of London. And this is a world where many people are inauthentic in order to get ahead.
Mm,
So I am encountering a lot of people who, in my own personal opinion, were not capable or were less than capable, but yet were being positioned. I'm using language I'm using now, but it's almost like you see it when you kind of look back on it. These people are being positioned in places where they have the illusion of being capable. Whereas maybe I was a bit misguided in this thinking where I could go ahead and try and do the right thing as such, and it wasn't getting me anywhere. And then you would think to yourself, and I'm sure many other people will probably think like this as well, where they're thinking to themselves, in order to get ahead or in order to actually, if your designs are to succeed in the corporate world or even to succeed in business almost to an extent, we see it a lot with influencer culture now where we are seeing people that are taking on this either like they're acting, it's either they're acting or they're taking on a persona in order to generate interest and attention. And I'll get onto attention in just a moment. So, is this something that affected me? I would probably say yes to a point at the beginning because I didn't really have a clue what I was doing. I think when you're in the experimental stage of when you're starting out, especially when you're building a visible personal brand, you can get away with trying a few things and seeing what sticks. But then at the same time, if you're persisting with just experimenting, like I mentioned earlier, where you're not actually executing what you're doing, then you're just going to go round and round in circles and you're not going to end up making any money, which is exactly what happened. So there had to be a point where you have to kind of almost say to yourself, who is it that you want to be and what is it that you actually stand for? What is your, I don't want to say the word niche, but you kind of do in a way. What's your lane? What's your angle? What is it that you want to be known for in the marketplace? And once I finally understood that, it was almost like a light bulb moment. And this only happened at the end of last year, right? And at the end of last year, the light bulb moment comes on, and I'm like, do you know what? I'm going to sit down and I'm going to actually I'm going to thrash it out. And I'm just going to try and figure out what it is that matters the most to me. And I'm just going to go forward with this vision. And literally, since I've been doing that, it's crazy what's happened because being authentic has been able to not only build relationships, but also it's helped to get the message out there. It's almost like what I'm trying to communicate in terms of who I'm wanting to work with, and also the approach that I'm hopefully trying to portray online is one of a real person. I don't need to use particular words or do stunts or dance or whatever. It's like what you see is kind of what you get, and if this resonates with you, brilliant. Please come along for the ride. We'll grow together. That's kind of the aim, really, where it's not so much about, oh, come and follow Tiyon, he's amazing, but I want to create a community of like-minded, ambitious people that believe that they can ascend or achieve more with the life and the gifts and the talents that they've been given. So yeah, authentic all the way. Authentic all the way. I think changing that approach now would be wrong. And God willing, if my business grows and if my presence grows, then yeah, there could be temptations to kind of play to the crowd, but I wouldn't want to. And I would rather stay small and be authentic than to be a paid
yeah.
act as such.
Perfect response. I love it. Authenticity all the way for sure. That's the way, like, and that's where you really truly help people
Mm.
because you could fake help people, in a way that it seems like you help them. They feel like, great, I have this whole Google presence or whatever, but not really, it doesn't really give them what they really need to succeed. So,
Mm.
so much is being done right now, nowadays, to increase someone's perceived visibility, authority, credibility. People pay enormous money to PR firms to have features in Forbes and other top tier
Mm.
journals, to have the knowledge panel in Google, to have the Wikipedia page, to
Mm.
engineer AI research responses in precise way that emphasizes only the good stuff about the people, to
Yeah.
appear in Google search results a certain way.
Yeah.
So, um, I kind of know already what you're going to say, but what's more important in today's world? Competence or perceived competence?
That's another great question. Do you know what? I'm going to challenge. You know, I'm actually going to challenge that a little bit because it would be very, very silly to give you the obvious answer. Let me give you one from both sides. I don't like playing devil's advocate, but I will for this question. Competence, right? You wouldn't hire. Say, for example, I imagine you probably drive a really nice car. If not, just pretend you do, right? And the last thing you would want if that car breaks down is some run of the mill, not even a run of the mill mechanic or someone that can't even fix a car, come
Right.
up to you and say, "Hey, Vardan, like, I've got a spanner in my back pocket. Let me just try and, let me try and fix you. Let me try and fix your car." Right? You probably
Yeah.
look at him and think, "Go away. What's wrong with you?" Right? But do you know what? The craziest thing is that this type of thing happens, particularly online, all the time, where you'll get an email or you'll get a DM or you'll get a request from someone that is just like, "Hey, I do this, I do that. Would you like to buy my services?" And unfortunately, the Britishness in me kind of comes out, and I automatically think everything's a scam. But at the same time, it's like, everyone's got to start from somewhere, right? So you can't necessarily kind of be so dismissive of everybody. But at the same time, if someone is kind of offering you a perceived, here we go, a perceived
Uh-huh.
level of competence, right? And they come up to you and kind of say, like, "Hey, look, listen, I do this, I can offer you this. Would you be interested?" Right? At first, you might think, "Oh, hey, thank you for the offer. At least, it's nice to feel, you know what, it's nice to feel approached. It's nice to receive an email you weren't expecting with an offer from someone, like, and then you kind of just sort of like, maybe just kind of look into a little bit from obviously where it's come from, because, nothing good comes for free, right? And that's still true. So at least if you're doing a little bit of digging, a little bit of research, and if you can't
Mhm.
find anything, or if nothing is kind of adding up, or like youngsters say, the math isn't mathing, right? Then there is absolutely nothing wrong with questioning that perceived level of competence, right? It's almost like you're not kind of being rude when you're doing it, or maybe some people are, but it's almost like, well, hey, look, I appreciate the offer, but what can you demonstrate to me to show me that you are capable of offering what it is that you offer? Same thing with the guy, like I mentioned the mechanic example, right? If it was if it was another guy with the same brand of car you're driving, holding like two toolboxes, and maybe he's
Uh-huh.
driving a branded van saying mechanic written on it, you'd be a lot more,
Right.
trustworthy because you're seeing the tangible evidence of someone capable of fixing your car. So whether it's in the real world, whether it's in the real world or whether it's online, right? There needs to be some kind of evidence of sorts. And it's difficult when you haven't got that evidence, right?
Mhm.
This is where, and this is where my work comes in, this is where having a personal brand or at least a visible brand presence is paramount. Because now we're in an age now where literally anybody, doesn't matter whether you're a 90-year-old great grandma or you're a 10-year-old, even though I wouldn't suggest 10-year-olds to build a personal brand. Maybe let
Right.
me change that to 18-year-olds. An 18-year-old with a personal brand or a 90-year-old grandmother, right? If that 90-year-old is putting out content demonstrating their expertise or knowledge in what they can do, even if they've never serviced a client before, they can still build that level of trust with potential clients because they are consistently putting out content that demonstrates expertise in what they do. That means that someone watching, or at least someone that at least is getting the attention that it's gathering. As I said, I did mention attention. I'm going to focus more on attention now. Means that you can start to build trust even from afar without actually having to deliver evidence. And if you are delivering authentic evidence, or at least some kind of authentic competency, sorry, I can't give my words out there, competency, right? Then it's easier for someone to trust you. It's easier for someone to take on that responsibility without the actual tangible evidence.
Right.
And that's why having a visible presence, whether it's in the real world or online, is so important. And then that perceived competence, right? As long as it's demonstratable and you can build that relationship, that then becomes competence.
Mhm.
And then at the same time, once you're able to do that, that then becomes actual competence because you've built the trust, you've
Right.
got the experience, and then you can go back to the next person and say, "Hey, look, I've been able to do this. I can demonstrate that now."
Right.
So one thing I'm going to very quickly mention about attention, right? Attention is like currency now. It's like I think attention probably nowadays is probably more valuable than the US dollar, right? Or the euro or the pound,
Yes,
or whatever,
for
right?
sure.
And some people are are maybe quite modest in their approach. They're humble, and not everyone is built for, getting in front of a camera and speaking, or even influencing, or even just
Right.
being a presence of sorts, right? But unfortunately, we're in an age where the world of brand and marketing has become so big, and it's become so important now, that if you are not able to not just command attention, but keep the attention, then it's very, very hard for you to gain any kind of equity especially in this online world,
Mm.
because there's just so much competition.
Yes.
The problem as well is that you're facing two different tiers of competition. You're dealing with a whole load of kind of what I would call kind of plankton bottom feeders, where it's a constant, excuse my language, shit show of
Yes.
low quality, low effort,
Yes.
lazy, what I would call insignificant content, which some of it will get attention because, people like that kind of stuff, especially on TikTok. But still, it's almost like, because there's so much saturation in at the bottom,
Hmm.
it's hard for, others who may be going with more authentic, what's the word I'm looking for?
Content.
The
Yeah.
content, or intentions rather, intentions stand out. And
Yeah.
then at the same time, you're also fighting against the guys at the very top, the guys with the
Yeah.
multi-million pound budgets, the guys with the really plush studios, and the PR firms, and
Right.
and all that. I'm going to give one very famous example at the moment. The entrepreneur Emma Green. She's from the UK. She does a lot of work in America. She works with Kim Kardashian. She owns a
Oh.
company called Skims. Anyway, I mentioned her because recently she's been on a massive PR splurge. Right,
Mm.
she's obviously just paid out for some really expensive PR agents at the moment, because lately her visibility has been pretty much everywhere. She was on Oprah. She has been on
Mm.
lots of the big podcasts in the US. Like, she's been on a lot of things back in the UK as well. That's just one example, but obviously, she's a multi-millionaire. She can afford to do that. Joe Blogs, in his mum's basement in somewhere in America, can't do that. So
Right.
you're fighting against a lot of variables. And yes, a lot of the times, if you have the money to invest in those kind of services, to bring it home here, to give an impression of perceived competence, right? You are losing out, but at the same time, you have this kind of, it's almost like a seesaw. It's like a really bad seesaw. It's almost like a broken seesaw to an extent. But also then there's volume. So the only way really I personally think, in order to kind of keep and gain and at least hold on to some kind of attention, even though the process now for building a brand is definitely a lot longer than it used to be, is an element of just being authentic.
Hmm.
Understanding who you are, understanding what your lane is, what you do, being somewhat true to yourself. You don't necessarily need to play a particular role, but then at the same time, if someone, another human person, doesn't matter if it's through a camera or if you meet them in real life, and say if I shook your hand, for example, they still want to feel that human interaction. They still want to feel and see and smell and taste and hear from another human on the other end of the screen. And this is where, especially where the world of AI, things get a little bit distorted. So you don't know whether, if you're replying to someone, if you're replying to an AI chatbot or not, or whether you're getting
Right.
a real feel of the person's personality. So lots of variables, lots of variables. But again, that's another long-winded way of me basically saying that there are two ways of looking at that. But if you want to be perceived as competent, the only way to actually be perceived as competent is actually be competent.
Yes. So essentially, what I hear you say is both are important.
Yes.
So both are important. And if you're actually not competent, but you are perceived as competent because of all the PR and all the stuff, right?
Mhm.
Then people initially do come to you. But when your services don't match up to what they're expecting based on the
Mhm.
visibility and credibility and all that,
Yeah.
the perceived one, right? Then
Yeah.
they go away and they never come back and they give you a bad review, and then
Yeah.
nobody else will come to you. So, but yes, you could be you know, the biggest specialist out there. If you're not visible, nobody can find you. So both are important. Now,
Mm.
my question on that is, which one comes first? Which one should come first? Like if somebody comes to you and says, look, I'm neither credible, nor am I, visible. What should
Mm.
I develop first? What would you say?
Excellent question. The number one answer to that is credibility.
Okay.
Number one. Let me just break down. You mentioned something else that was really, really important in terms of overselling or even
Mm,
over promising something that you can't deliver. So I would never explicitly say that the services I offer mean that you're going to go viral tomorrow,
mm,
or that instantly you're going to be, world famous on social media, and that you're going to have people banging down your door and you're going to be a celebrity overnight. Go and find a good PR firm or a tabloid for that. That's not the
right.
service I offer. What I actually do is, and this is where the whole capability thing comes in, is that a lot of what I do is a lot of mental unscrambling, and not in a sense where I'm, like being a shrink or a psychologist, but a lot of it is that I'm dealing with people a lot of the time that are clearly have some kind of capability, right? They have some sort of awareness already that they are either good at doing something, they have sufficient knowledge in a particular area, or that they are looking to develop in a particular business. And I see this a lot with network marketers, for example, where they will join a network marketing scheme and they want to, they want to excel with this because it's a good side income for their family, and they want to do well. So this is where, especially in this particular world, personal branding is a real asset to network marketing. But we're dealing with sometimes a lot of people that either don't really fully believe that they are capable, even though they
Mhm,
clearly are. And then also at the same time, we're dealing with people that maybe have some seeds of capability. It just basically needs a bit of watering.
mm,
So what I do is that I have three particular programs that I can take people on. There's one where if I'm dealing with someone that, let's just say they're a little bit further ahead,
mm,
they know that they're capable, but they just need almost some refinement or a little bit of just a very small amount of direction as to kind of how to really push their brand. I have a very short, kind of like a 1 day session that I offer for them, and then for those that need a bit more work, I have two more. One is 90 days, and the other one is 6 months.
mm,
6 months is really in depth. So that one it's like a full rebrand build. That's kind of more for people that have like either no idea or they're super serious about becoming capable. They're like, you know what, I'm like my last nerve. I want to build something that's going to last me for a long, long time. So that's where obviously the investment comes in. Obviously, it's a small amount of money. It's an investable amount, but
mhm,
what you would get out of it will pay in dividends if you apply it. And that's the other thing I said before at the beginning, where we're dealing with people that if they're not willing, then they're not going to get the value out of that particular service. So that's kind of the capability part. So a lot of the time, I won't be dealing with people that aren't capable or that aren't
mm.
aware of their capability. So that's the first part. Visibility, the second part. Sorry, I'm making myself laugh here. You would not put a spotlight on an idiot. You would not put someone that can't act, can't sing, and can't dance in a New York Broadway show as a leading man or a leading lady, right? Because it's not only bad for them, but also the audience that's paying for this is going to be like, "What the hell is this? Why have you put this moron?
Give me my money back, huh?
Give me my money back now!" Right? And this is going to sound. I'm going to sound really terrible by saying this. So I'm going to say, I mean, this is something we see common and common and common. It happens again, particularly on TikTok, where let's just say the craziest things go viral, right? You just see things where you're just like, I have no idea why so many people find that funny or find that
Yes.
popular, but yet here it is, it's visible and it's here right in front. It's on my screen, and believe me, I wasn't looking for it, right? So we understand from this, Vardan, where the power of visibility shines a light on maybe people that aren't capable or shouldn't have that level of visibility in the first place. But here's what I hope to do, and this is what I hope to do for my clients and any future clients that work with me. What if we put the two together? What if we were able to develop capability in a sense where you are fully comfortable with who you are and what you bring to the table, your knowledge and your gift or your talent or whatever it is, right? And combine that with a solid, not just a content structure, because I do more than just content, but a content marketing and a branding structure of sorts where you are able to build your brand, you're able to build your content presence, and you're able to really develop in terms of getting your story and getting your brand out there combined with that level of what you do,
Mm,
right? if that's packaged together in a way that makes sense for someone either watching or being aware of to a consistent amount of time, the likelihood of of something snowballing or something happening, or at least opportunities or revenue or whatever, the likelihood of that happening is extremely small. The only way it wouldn't happen is if they tried and persisted on this journey for a short amount of time, didn't see the results immediately and thought, it's too hard, I'm done.
Right.
It's normally at that point you must have, you must have seen it on your professional journey, Vardan, where there's this picture of the man that's digging in the gold, not the gold, the diamond tunnel,
Yeah.
and he's digging,
Yes.
digging, and then he gives up and turns around and walks
I've
away.
actually, I saw that recently, like a week
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, yeah. And for those that are watching that haven't seen it, or we're listening and haven't seen it, there's a massive diamond at the end, and
Yes.
he's like that close away from getting there.
Yeah.
But there's also another element as well, which I think is really, really important in terms of the visibility part. In order to stay the course, because many don't stay the course, many will try
Hmm.
for 3 months, a year, even 2 years, or even up to 5 years, or even longer, right? And they'll keep trying, they keep trying, right? And then they'll just give up. It's hopeless. I can't do this. Well, why did you get me on this? Why did you set me on this in this hiding to nothing in the first place? Well, I didn't, right? It's almost like you didn't understand the importance of having a sufficient amount of faith to see this through.
Right.
Because I personally think this is one of my own personal philosophies, and I think many people do share this, but it's impossible to be capable or at least have ambition or even to be a successful entrepreneur without having some kind of faith. I've never seen a faithless entrepreneur in my life, right?
Mm,
Unless you're literally, someone that is just relying on outside funding, or you're just
right.
addicted to raising capital, right? And everything's just kind of been done for you, then, all right, fine. You can be as pessimistic as you want, right? But then at the same time, especially if you're a smaller entrepreneur, at least someone with a small business, or at least someone that's somewhat upwardly mobile, right? You're at least hoping for something good to happen, because you're hoping that your business is going to be successful. You're hoping that, let's take it back, that you're going to be visible, that you're going to be capable, right?
Hope is
So in
not a
order to have
strategy,
hope,
right?
yeah, exactly. Obviously, you need strategy. You need obviously an element of hope as well. Like, I hope this is going to happen, right? But in
Yeah.
order to have hope, you need to have faith, right? Again, that's the thing with the diamond. It's almost like that person didn't believe that they were actually going to get the diamond, but the diamond was there. And
Right.
we can see it. The evidence is there. What I'm saying is not incorrect, because go on. For example, go on somebody else's podcast, or go
Mm,
on Instagram, or go on social media. There are people out there that are succeeding. So it's not like there's only a small pool of people that, sorry, you only need to look a certain way, or you need to be young and hot, or have lots of muscles, or whatever. No, we're seeing, old people, we're seeing middle-aged people, we're seeing black people, white people, purple people that are succeeding.
right.
It's not impossible, but you got to stay the course. And if you do, then, as I said, combining the two equals success, and it is possible.
Right. Absolutely.
Mm,
No, that's a great answer. So, one of the things, that it's just a question in my head, which
mm,
is, what's the most dangerous trait that ambitious people mistake for strength? Yeah. You know,
mm.
you're so ambitious and you're like, okay, I got, and so you're pushing a trade forward that you think that it projects strength, but it's very dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think certainly for in my own experience, this is
Mm,
beyond business. This is just an observation that
yeah.
I kind of take from life, really. But I think the thing that curtails ambition the most is, I want to say, it's a combination of overconfidence and almost uncertainty at the same time.
Mm,
As I said, I used to work in financial services, so I tend to use a lot of money metaphors. It's almost like the equivalent of making a very, very large investment in a very unstable market and just kind of blindly being confident that it's going to pay off. But then at
mm,
the same time, also not understanding that due to volatility, I'm not just talking about the markets here, volatility of life, anything can happen at any point, where your confidence, or even not just, let's not call it confidence, right? your overconfidence or your borderline delusion, right, can go from 100 to 0 in literally 2 minutes, just like that. I just want to expand on that a little bit more because um, that's something that I suffered with before I kind of got my head screwed on
Mm.
and kind of, tried to figure out this thing called life and business, right? Where I always had this or notion that I was so ambitious that I didn't want anything or anyone to kind of stop that journey, and that if I felt that someone or something didn't believe in what it was I was trying to achieve, then that person was worthless, or they had nothing to offer, or they, they're just a hater or an unbeliever
Yeah.
or whatever. And when you're young, you're kind of a little bit stupid, really. And I went through that mindset of just being so single-minded and so ambitious that I kind of forgot that, nobody succeeds on their own. But also at the same time, if you're trusting your own intuitions too much, you have no idea whether your own intuitions is going to lead you straight off a cliff,
Right.
which in my case it did. Again, I'm not going to kind of go into life
Right.
events or whatever, but there were numerous times in my life where I thought doing something in terms of in the name of ambition was the right thing to do, but it's ended up leaving me in a place that I didn't particularly want to be in.
Mm.
Going from having a really great job one minute to being fired the next day,
Hmm.
or from taking advantage of a really great opportunity with some of the high ups in a company I work with, to literally sitting in a room the next day in a disciplinary or clashing with a cleared team member or something.
Hmm.
It's almost like, I'm not saying everybody needs to just be humble and pious. It's like, um, understand that ambition is not a bad thing, but I think we misconstrue the impression, or also the definition of what ambition is.
Hmm.
Ambition basically means that you are in one place right now. So imagine I'm holding up my glasses case right now.
Hmm.
Imagine that's point A,
Hmm.
right? And point B is your perceived level of success. This is what ambition looks like. You are here, you want to go here, right?
Hmm.
Ambition is basically everything in the middle.
Right.
That's all it is, right? It's a journey. It's a process. It's a state of mind leading you in a particular direction. It's not something that you can actually physically hold. Like, I can't go out and go to the shop and buy myself some ambition, right? It's almost like with, my kids are small. My two girls are 7 and 3. So, you hear it with, parents of teenagers, for example, like, my son or daughter's not ambitious at all. They're so lazy. I wish they'd just have to get up and go, or that kind of thing. But it's like, at the same time, it's like you can't force anyone to be ambitious. You can't force other people to have that same drive and ambition as you do. There's nothing wrong with being ambitious, but you just got to understand, where is that ambition taking you? Are you
Hmm.
are you in control of that level of ambition? Or, as I said, is your single-mindedness or your stubbornness or your arrogance literally going to drive you up a cliff?
Absolutely. You know,
Mm,
a lot of the times I'm still going through exactly what you just described.
mm,
By nature, I'm very ambitious,
mm,
high energy and high ambition. And so I get to, I get into situations where, oh, some idea came into my head and I start developing it. I start going
yeah.
for it and wasting or spending time and money and whatever the effort to bring this, across the finish line or whatever. Right. So
Mm,
I'm starting something. And then, so I have this person in my life who everything I tell him, he shuts down flat
mm,
out. Like,
mm,
actually, I have few of those people, and they have saved my life many times by shutting it down.
mm.
One of them is my wife, um, who, at one time I went to her. I said, "Oh, look, I got this. I applied to this speaking thing,
Mm,
and it's gonna give me this. It's gonna give me that. It's like it's gonna give me a feature in USA Today, and it's whatever. But it costs $5,000." And
mm.
so she was like, "No." And I got so upset with her, like, "Why no?" Like, why you like stifling my, whatever, I wanna
Yeah.
do this, I need to do this. And she was like, well, just wait for tomorrow, wait a little bit of time or whatever, and like research a little more. Who are these people and stuff like that? Well,
Mm.
that ended up being a fake, um, because the
Oh, right.
real thing was actually $10,000.
Mm.
The fake one was 5, and so I found out that it was fake by, because they started every time somebody tells you, like, contacts you on by email or LinkedIn and says, "Let's talk on WhatsApp." That's a
Yeah.
fake. Don't do
Yeah.
that, right? Because they don't want to be traced. So that saved me $5,000 and a huge
Mm.
embarrassment. So
Mm.
the second person who is constantly, kind of putting a huge stopper, like a building a wall in front of me every time I tell him something, is my dad. So
Mm.
everything. I mean, I'm talking the good and the bad and everything in the middle. He says no. Like that's well, he doesn't say no. He just starts like picking it apart, basically. Like, why? Why are you doing this? What's going? Why? And so sometimes, because he doesn't discriminate, he puts a stopper on everything. I look at it with a grain of salt. So I have an internal kind of filter that I
Mm.
pass everything through. And I was like, sometimes, and I give it like a day or two. And sometimes after a day or two, I say, he's right. Even though at a moment, like I do a huge fight with him, like
Mm.
screaming match. And I like, you are always stopping me from like doing these great things and stuff like that. But anyways, and sometimes he is absolutely correct and sometimes he's not. So, but having that person in your life to kind of,
Mm.
say, "Hey, wait a minute," So there's this story. It's about bad people, but the story actually is kind of very relevant to what we're talking about. So in Nazi Germany, they wanted to gather all the best scientists to create the nuclear bomb. And so
Mm.
they divided scientists into two groups. So actually it's four groups, but there's two types of people with high energy and people with high competence, right?
Mm.
So they said, well, there's scientists who have low competence and low energy. There is ones that have low competence and high energy, high competence, low energy, high
Mm.
competence, high energy.
Mm.
So obviously, you will not deal with scientists who have low competence and low energy
Mm.
because they will just not do a thing. They will
Mm.
just not progress the science, right? If you're dealing with, scientists with high energy and high capabilities, high competence, great. Okay. Employ those. So they gather those. They say, okay, these are like the worker bees. That these
Mhm.
guys are gonna like progress, right? The people who and the surprising part is the people with high energy and low competence were the worst. Like those people, so high energy, low
Mm.
competence,
Mm.
those would not even be permitted to even come close to any of these projects and stuff like that. And the most valuable ones were low energy, high competence. So the reason for that is when they discover something, they don't run to their boss and say, I did it. I discovered it. They sit on it. They're low energy. They sit on it. They're like, is this really true? They try to poke holes in their theories or their experiments or whatever. They take their time. They're very slow, low energy, right? Versus the high energy ones are when they did something and something worked, they're like, great, that's it. It's done. Let's go. Come on, push forward. They don't think that, wait a minute, it's going to cost more than I can spend. It's
Mm.
going to, I can't scale this up. It's in the lab scale is good, but in the, you know, larger scale, I can't do it, and so on and so forth. So, the balance is very important, to keep
Mm.
between the energy and
And
competence. I am
competence.
one of those. I am one of those that are high energy, and I would like to think that I have high competence,
Mhm.
but it's not up to me. It's up to the people who I help, or work with and stuff like that. So, but and I've been trying over the years to lower my energy. level, so just, relax, don't, So what type from all of this do you belong to? Are you high, what's your take on yourself, with that?
Yeah, I was, whilst you're talking, I was actually sitting there thinking where I'd probably fit into that. I would definitely not say that I'm low energy. I'd definitely say I'm definitely not low energy for sure. But it's an interesting one because I when you're thinking about self-evaluation, because I'm so used to evaluating other people, I'm just kind of like, what would I kind of say for myself? Because I think no one would readily admit that that they're stupid or that they're not
Yeah.
confident because I would like to think I'm somewhat competent. I'd like to think I'm above average intelligence. I think I'm definitely not genius level, but I'm smart. I think I'm smart. But I'd probably say if I had to be realistic, I'd probably say I'd probably fit more in the high competence, high energy field because um, I've always been enthusiastic, and it's not always been a good thing. But then at the same time, it's one of those things where you are either confident, or if you're good at doing something and you are and it's effortless, you just kind of forget in a way. If you're a high energy sort of person, you kind of forget that that there are other people around, or that maybe some people aren't really that reciprocating of high energy.
Right.
And so there have been a number of times where I've been in meetings with clients and I've been a bit loud and a bit animated, but the clients have loved it because they've loved the energy. But at the same time, you're kind of seeing your colleagues kind of looking at you like, oh my God, is he going on again? Or he's too loud when he's on the phone, or he's just like, I'm just excited. I'm just happy. I love doing what I do. Every single time I'm recording a podcast as well, my wife always says to me afterwards, you were so loud. And I'm like, I'm excited. I'm happy. I'm like, what's his name? Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. I'm just like
Yeah.
bouncing around all the time. I'm just happy and excited doing what I'm doing. So yeah, I suppose it's a bit of both really. And I understand that the need to kind of bring things down a little bit. And that's something I've had to learn as I've gotten older, because one thing I've had to kind of learn how to do is basically be kind of adaptable to
Mhm.
other people. It's not almost like, well, I'm this way, so everyone else has to reciprocate my energy. I deal with people in many areas of my life that are maybe not as happy and bouncy and funny and as enthusiastic as I am. It's almost like, okay, maybe I don't want to be as maybe as low as some people, but at the same
Mhm.
time, learning how to be a bit more measured in your approach helps with building relationships with people, because maybe not every conversation needs to be 100 miles an hour. Maybe there's some times where you just need to kind of take a step back for a moment and just sit and have a slow, measured experience with someone, whether if you're just having a
Right.
conversation or if you're having dinner or whatever. For example, a client of mine that I had recently who's just finished one of the programs I'm on, I'd probably say she's probably more on the lower energy side. I wouldn't say
Mm.
she's totally dull, but she wasn't loud and enthusiastic. I think a lot of it was to do with confidence, but she was talking, chatty, yes,
Right.
but lower energy, much lower
Mhm.
energy. It wouldn't have made sense for me to, as I said, be over
Right.
enthusiastic with that kind of approach. It's almost like learning to be adaptable, I think, is
You
a
have to
trait that
match. Yes. Yeah.
any good entrepreneur, any good host, any good, if you're dealing with people, being adaptable is probably a fundamental trait.
Absolutely. Tiyon, thank you so much. This has been amazing and educational as well.
Thank you.
So, and I wish you the best luck and success in your career and the business and life as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No,
And
Vardan, thank you very much. Thank you for the experience. I wish the same. I wish exactly the same for you as well. You've been an amazing host. And I just wanted to thank you for your time and thank you for inviting me on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
thank you.